So today is December 29th, 2024. We are here today with Susan Goodman and her son Talmage Hansen as part of the Globe Stake 50th anniversary video series. Thank you for being with us, Sister Goodman and Brother Hansen. I'd like to start out with Sister Hansen and like to invite you to tell us a little bit about your background, your growing up, your family life growing up, and then maybe get us into how you ended up in Globe and what some of your thoughts were of Globe.
Okay. Well, I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and to goodly parents. They were very, very good parents, very active in the church, and they taught us, their 6 children, to be that way. And I came from Pioneer heritage also. And so I go way back in my upbringing of the church in the gospel. So we lived there. My dad was a seminary coordinator, institute director, teacher, all of that CES program. So we moved a few times. We went down to Tucson, and after Phoenix, we went to Mesa. Then we went to Tucson. Then he went up to Chandler, and then over to California. And by then I was gone from the family, but anyway, that was the bringing up, and we had a good childhood. And
he was a bishop 4 times.
He was a bishop 4 times, yeah. He was always in a suit and tie. Never saw him hardly in anything dressed but that.
Yeah, and the institute, suit and tie all the time, I guess.
Yeah. So that was my upbringing, and then I married, and I was Susan Hansen at that time, and I was married for 44 years. And then, 20 years before that, my husband left the church, and I continued to try to raise the kids in the church, all 8 children that we had. And some of them were married at this time. But anyway, so we stayed active and doing our duties for the most part of the family. And so 32 years ago, we came to Globe. 32 years ago at this time, the day after Christmas, our family moved to Globe because we were in Coolidge at that time, but one of our children, who shall remain nameless, I guess, will...
So it's 1992.
1992 in Coolidge, and he got in a fight.
He will not remain nameless.
Oh, okay. He, darn it.
So I'm going to just say it. So my older brother, Spencer, him and Taylor, they were rebellious teenagers, and they're not going to deny that. That was part of who they were. And Spencer, he got in trouble in Coolidge. He got in a fight.
Got expelled.
Not suspended, like you're out for a week, like we do here in Globe.
He was out of there.
They said, don't come back. So my dad's working in Globe part-time.
Oh, that's right.
And my mom and dad were like, you know what? We've thought of moving up there. Why don't we just go now?
It's a good time.
One of our kids can't even go to school in Coolidge anymore. So he comes up first, right?
Right, and stays with Larry and Fern McClendon and finishes his semester.
Which I thought was cool because one of my best friends ended up becoming Tucker Terrafin, Kathleen and Todd's son. And Spencer would tell me about this little boy named Tucker that he played video games with at the McClendon's house. And Tucker would tell me later after he moved, yeah, your brother was here for a few months before. And me and Tucker are still friends to this day. So,
and just to help everyone connect all the connections there, the Terrafins would be, the sister Terrafin was a McClendon.
Right.
So the McClendons were...
Yes, good call. Right. Yep. And also they have a video on here as well, but a very integral part of my upbringing, the Terrafins.
Good family friends. Later, we came to be related to the Terrafins because my husband Larry's mother married
her uncle.
Her uncle, Kathleen Terrafin's uncle, and we were all together at the wedding, and we just always felt kind of connected with them, the Terrafins and the McClendons.
So before you go too far with that, I was 7 when we moved here, and looking back, I feel like Globe was my upbringing, even though I moved here when I was 7, second grade. So I actually got baptized here in this building by my dad, and as you were saying, you said that was your only kid who gave.
He was my only child that wanted to give his own baptismal talk. He didn't want anybody else to do it. He just knew what he wanted to say, did a very good job, and
I have another side to that story.
Do you remember that?
I do, yes. I remember you get 2 talks. You get to choose who's going to give your 2 talks, right? Even though I'd only been here 5 months, Jim McBride was hands down my first pick. He was just an amazing teacher, which says a lot because he was teaching 7-year-olds, and I still remember how good of a teacher he was. The second one, I think I was going to pick my dad or someone, and then my dad says, I'll give you a banana split if you do it yourself.
I didn't know that.
So she didn't know that, or she forgot it. And that was enough for me. So he wanted me to understand as much as possible what I was committing to. So he thought I gave the talk on baptism, and that gave me a chance to not only study it, but understand, okay, here's what I'm doing. Because 8 is very young to get baptized. We know that some kids probably don't understand it fully. He wanted me to know as best I could as an 8-year-old. So that's kind of the background behind me doing that.
Did you get the banana split?
I got the banana split. You better believe it. And Brother McBride, who has a video on here as well. Also, the McBrides are a big part of Globe Stake and Globe First Ward. He gave me this rock, and it had just writing on it. He always had good ways of teaching, and I kept that rock. It was a big one. Kept it for a long time, and it had I don't even remember exactly what it said, but I remember it was just a reminder every time I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, I got the gift of the Holy Ghost, and that's what it is. And
yeah,
so
wow,
that was you starting to see lots of people come into our lives. First, the Terrafins. I'd say
first people in our lives when we moved here was Jeff and Terry Dalton.
I was going to say they were really close.
Yeah, their kids matched up with our 4 youngest, and we did a lot together. We're still great friends, and it was them that got us. They just lent the hand of friendship. They just made us feel so comfortable, and I've felt that way to the day I left on October 22nd of 22 when I left the stake and went to Vernon, Arizona. But always felt comfortable in this stake, that people are so friendly, so outreaching, so good.
The Daltons, we would regularly go on hikes with them and campouts, and
walking
we were
our dogs
real close. I remember I felt comfortable enough to fall asleep on a trip on Terry's lap, and I don't think I could do that with anyone else, but I remember sleeping. And,
you were what, 7 at the time, or 8?
However, we were just young.
Okay.
And but me and Adam Dalton was my age, and I could keep talking.
I know. Yeah, we can.
Well, let me ask you, so coming to Globe, did you have any reservations about coming to Globe?
No, because our son was out of school, and I wasn't going to have him hanging around the house and getting into more trouble. So we had to get him in school, and we knew we had to follow. And
we were coming from Coolidge.
and
Coolidge was something else.
Coolidge, we liked it because we had tons of family there. But we like Globe. We like the mountains. We like the small town feel. Which Coolidge was too. But but
Globe was kind of us doing our own thing. There was 6 Hansen families in Coolidge.
I had
probably
ward.
50 plus cousins.
Right.
And all in the same ward. And Globe was kind of like us being pioneers in our own way.
And I wrote about that in my journal once. My kids are playing with each other. They're not playing with cousins. They're not playing with friends. They're playing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a bonding, uniting type of a time. Only 6 of our 8 kids came with us because our oldest was in college at the time at U of A. Our second one,
Taylor
refused to come.
Sophomore or junior. Yeah, he just said, I'm not coming.
He was a junior. And he stayed with a friend. And the other 6 came. And they just played together, bonded.
It was almost, how much did you say, 22 years to the day?
Yeah.
Almost?
No, today?
No, we moved the day after Christmas.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I remember we all had bikes. We've always been a biking family, thanks to our parents who would bike all the time too. And I remember we could ride on these hills all day. We would get right to the top and then go down them. There's nothing like that in Coolidge. It's completely flat.
Yeah.
Globe was just an adventure with all the mountains.
And one story with McKay coming down the street right in back of our house on a bike, his brakes went out and there was a car stopped at the intersection. He went right through that man's windshield and said, he broke his collarbone. He had 34 stitches. I've looked that up recently in my journal. And he was in the hospital, and then the boys in the ward came to visit him. He was a new deacon, I believe. He was 12.
I remember when he was laying on the street.
Yeah.
He only broke his collarbone, but cut himself.
34 stitches.
34 stitches. And I didn't know if he was going to live or die, but I remember they had to cut his clothes off and him being in his underwear, and I felt so embarrassed for him that he had to be in his underwear with the neighbors looking. That was one of the parts I remember. But
yeah.
So he was at the age of a deacon at the time?
Yeah. And it was just the love of, I don't know, the ward it's always loved us, Globe First Board. And lots of rallying, lots of helping, lots of situations where
I want to jump ahead real quick, going along with this, because I lived in Globe for 11 years when we moved here, 7 to 18, left and came back 16 years later in 2019. I remember my first Sunday back sitting in a Sunday school, and it was like nostalgic to be back home and just kind of surreal. And I remember looking at all the people there, and there was over 10 were parents of kids that I grew up with. Not like grew up like 5 years difference, like right my age group. I couldn't believe it. I was like Terrafins, Daltons, Pennells, Montagues, Burks. And I just kept seeing them, just like everyone, McBrides, they all had, like, it was almost like it hadn't changed in a way, which was so comforting coming home. It was like, man, I'm like, all these people I already have a relationship with them. Yeah. We're good about embracing new people anyway, but it was just nice to, all those kids that I grew up with, all those parents have stayed here for the most part. It seems like there's a few that have left, like the Lesheminas, but so many that have stayed.
Yeah.
So that's jumping ahead. Yeah.
So, Brother Hansen, anything else you'd like to add about growing up in the Globe Stake?
Sure.
Some of this already. But.
Yeah, so many. We had such a big youth group. All my close friends, like Adam Dalton, Tucker Terrafin, Matthew Pennell, Jordan Meller, Nick Montague, Jared Dykes, Elaine Mooney's son, Jacob McBride, Katie Burke, Hyla Machula, Shasta Taylor, who passed away as a teenager. That's
I read about that last night.
Daryl Gibson and his wife's daughter,
Leilani.
Yeah.
And
I'm missing people too.
Kevin Taylor's daughter also.
Yes. So there was a bunch of us, and we had Boy Scouts. Church did Boy Scouts still at that time, and it seemed like for the whole time we had the same leaders. It was Todd Terrafin, Bruce Brown, a little bit of Lindsay Altum. There'd be a little bit of Dad sprinkled in there. Jeff Dalton, my dad occasionally, but Todd and Bruce were kind of the core, and they made Scouts and Young Men's like such a blast. And it wasn't like we were going to Sunsplash and going to all these gimmicky fun things. Like they would take us on hikes. They would say, we're going up the Pinals, pack your bag. It needs to be 50 pounds. We're getting ready for a longer hike. And we would go, and we would just always be camping. And if you brought good food, you were taken care of. If you underpacked, it was kind of like, oh, maybe we got to help this kid out a little bit.
Swapping with somebody.
And I remember, we grew up in Globe, went to school, played a lot of sports, but we were just had tons of memories with the scout group, including scout camps, which were always a week long in the summer. We went everywhere. We went to Geronimo one year. We went to Lawton another year. We went to Raymond another year. And when I was a young men's leader, we had already stopped doing scouts, but me and brother Larson, who's an amazing outdoorsman, just incredible.
I don't know him.
Yeah, the dude could survive with a stick or whatever. He's amazing. Me and him were like, we got to get these kids outdoors. Like we don't need to do anything fancy. We just got to go. We got to go on hikes. We got to go on campouts. Anyway, I say that because that was such a cool part of my upbringing.
Can you think of perhaps one or two scouting experiences that was particularly noteworthy? Sounds like there were an awful lot of them, but is there one or two that
What
stand
about
out?
The big one,
the hike in the up in Washington?
I felt like that was the kind of the climax of all of our stuff. We were all getting old. We were seniors and juniors, and it was like, okay, these kids are about to leave soon. Let's do something big. Let's go out with a bang. And we did plan one up on the Pacific Coast Trail up in Washington State, a 50-mile one. We had to fly there with heavy backpacks already packed. Everything had to be done really well. And we did a 50-mile hike with just what was on our back. And it was not easy, and it was not
snowy.
always safe.
Yeah.
There was one point where we could barely find the trail, and it was snowy, and it was iced over snow at this point. And there was a big mountain just sloping down steep, and the trail was covered in ice snow. And Bruce takes the lead, and he's digging his foot in, and he's saying, okay, everyone, we all got to step in the same spots. You got to follow my footsteps. One wrong move, and you're just sliding down this mountain. Like if you had found out about this going on with our scouts today, you would cancel the trip, and you would say, okay, we're not doing that because this reason, that reason.
They're going to get killed.
Yes, and we did it, and we survived. That was a really cool week-long 50-mile hike we did. My dad came with me on that. I remember another one where I'll share this one. There were so many I could share, but we'd always do pretty local. That was the one where we flew out. It was always just drive and go hike. You probably know a lot of these places. There was one with some water holes that were kind of hard to find. And as we were going, me and one of my buddies got ahead, and we're looking back, and the adults are coming. And Adam Dalton, we're looking up at his dad, and it's looking like this trail is not, like something's going wrong. And the trail falls out from under him, and he ends up falling.
Under who? Adam?
Jeff.
Oh, Jeff.
Yeah, and
Jeff
Adam,
Dalton.
I remember yelling like, Dad, and he runs back to go help him, and Jeff had fallen a good ways, but kind of it could have been a lot worse than it was. He kind of caught himself and climbed back on. But we were never shying away from challenges, which is, and then it was always brought back, around the campfire, to gospel principles and things like that. But just so much lessons learned just by doing hard things that I feel like I still do with my kids today. Like I encourage my kids to do hard things often, just because life is hard and you got to start getting used to taking on hard things. So those were two that I remember kind of. We'd go to water holes, we'd go to scout camp. We never shied away from our backyard, the Pinellas right here. There's just great camping up there, 15 minutes away.
So one thing that we really haven't had, I think, anyone talk about in this video series yet, it was stake athletics. growing up? Did you ever have the opportunity to do state basketball or anything like that? Do you have any stories about that?
I mean, church ball is notoriously known for being something else. You can find funny Instagram videos making fun of it, and whole movies made about church ball. Like LDS church ball, there's movies made about it making fun of it. It can be intense. As a kid, I remember going back to Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer played.
He was an incredible athlete.
Yeah.
And we would get in these intense battles with Kearney or Superior, and it would sometimes spill over outside the church into more extracurricular activities. And I remember a little bit, my dad and Brother Lion getting into it as a kid, watching it. That's your brother-in-law. Oh. You may not have that memory, but as a kid, I distinctly remember it. I won't go into more details there, but they did not agree on some of the foul calls. I felt like when I played, it toned down a bit. I even feel like it may have gone away for a bit, and then it came back. And we had a team. There was always this thing about church ball is, there was this rule, you have to have 3 members on the court. So you can't just go bring the high school basketball team and call it a church, hey, here's our first ward church ball team, and they're the best people in Globe. You got to have 3 members. The rest you can call missionary opportunities or, inviting a friend. And we were real proud because our team was all members. Like, we had enough guys to cover it all. So we weren't trying to load up our team with ringers. But the other team did do that. They kind of broke the rules. They had too many non-members on their team, and they were really good. But somehow we pulled off the win. We had an undefeated season. We called ourselves the Red Wine, which was our way of being rebellious teens because we didn't drink wine. No. I know I didn't for sure. And I think it had to do, that song was kind of popular at the time. Red Wine.
Don't sing.
So that was just a goofy name that we had no coach. If we did, things would have probably been
different.
been different. But we kept it fun, and church ball was a lot of fun. I don't even know if there was referees. I think they did. I think they would provide referees. There were.
I watched, and there was refereeing.
We have a great court for it here. You got a scoreboard. Like, it was just a good way for people to use our facilities to play and interact, to bring people who didn't know the church. And that was about all the church sports we did back in the day.
So, were there other stake activities that either one of you remember that were noteworthy during your time here?
Yeah, I remember that. Mine was in Coolidge Day, so I don't know.
That was when the idea of a trek was introduced. We were the first people to do that. I don't remember ever hearing about it before. I was 16, and it was like, hey, we're going to do this thing called a trek. And
because we wanted to commemorate pioneers.
Yeah, we're going to walk in their shoes a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it was not easy either.
No.
We had literal hand carts.
Now, we did a few treks in the stake. Are you talking about the one that was up by Young?
I think so. Okay. Yes, that would have been 2001. I just remember that, I remember we got split up into teams, and it was across the state. So I had people in Kearney on my team. I remember I had my lineman, Devin Rodriguez, on my team, which was great because he was a workhorse. Yes. You had girls you had families. So that's still how they do it. But brother, who was that guy? Brother, he lived down the street from us. Brother, it wasn't Goodman, was it? It was something G.
The hospital administrator?
No. Oh. He was married to...
I can't remember.
Kevin Taylor's former wife.
I don't know,
Mm.
down the street from us.
Yeah, that's where he lived for a while. Anyway, you had families, and you got mixed with all different ages and genders and wards in the stake, and you were in your family, and then you had to put all your stuff in a cart and push it, and it was a hand cart. There was, I don't know who built these, but there was a rod in the front, and everyone would push. And this was like rocky, hilly, mountainous Arizona territory we went to. I guess it was young. Young sounds right, but I just remember this was not easy. And I was like going into junior, senior year, best shape of my life, 3-sport athlete at Globe High School, and Devin was my lineman. And me and him had the inside of that cart. And it was so much work to push this thing. And everyone would kind of get around and push, help us. But me and him were like really carrying a ton of weight on that. And that was one of the more memorable activities I remember having. Because one night we pushed all the way till it was beyond dark. And we got back, and all they gave us for dinner was
A live chicken.
no, we did that another day. They gave us a bouillon cube in some water. And I remember Adam Dalton was furious. He's like, "What? Are you kidding me?" He can make me laugh anytime. And we just had this humble dinner. I think they gave us like a roll and some like
hardtack or something.
Yeah.
Just something to subsist on.
But it tasted so good. We all just slept. And I remember we slept on the ground. Everyone. All the kids were in one spot. Whether you were older, younger, boys or girls, we were all just laying on the ground. Exhausted and just out. Just with like blankets over us and just all out. And that was the trek. There was
one of them.
We butchered a chicken on that trip live. We need to bring back some of these old school activities. So that's one that I remember. There was others. EFY was a thing then. I feel like that was today's version of FSY. And I remember going to BYU.
Mm-hmm.
That was just kind of on your own. You could do it. You could, hey, EFY is happening. If you want to go, here's an opportunity. But the church didn't really sponsor that. But man, you would hear the most amazing talks. That was really a cool experience. I remember a big part of my childhood and growing in my testimony was EFY. Any other stake activities you remember?
Just the 24th of July feasts and
Lower Field, tons of Lower Field activities.
Yeah, lots of fun times there.
Kids Scout camp, day camp we do down there.
Yeah, but Cub Scout day camp. Yeah, we did that.
So, Sister Goodman, actually, I guess this would be for both of you. You had the opportunity to serve in San Carlos for a couple of years, and the whole family went out to San Carlos.
Right.
Can you talk about
from February of '94 till '96? It was at least February, maybe around 2.5 years. I'm not sure of the timeline when we got released, but we were out at San Carlos, and the whole family went out, and we served out there. It was great. I got to, and then Terry Dalton and I, we served with the Daltons. President Dalton was the branch president, and my husband was one of the counselors, and Brother Machula was the second, I don't know, first or second counselor out there. And so, but Terry Dalton and I would even go out in the daytime and visit with the ladies. There were just wonderful, wonderful women out there. Sister Dude and Sister Shorten and Sister Curley and Sister Docila and Sister, there's others.
I don't know which one it was, but it was one of those. She would pray often in sacrament meeting.
Dude, Sister Dude, I think. Yeah.
She would pray often, and I remember my dad would say, sometimes when she's praying, I have to open my eyes and peek and see if Jesus is up there whispering in her ear.
They were just awesome women and faithful women, and anyway, those were good days. Those 2 years.
Now, well, Brother Hansen, what was it like for you as a youth growing up?
Yeah. So I was 9 to 10 range when we went, and luckily we got called with the Daltons because I remember really bonding with me, my younger brother Kimball, and Adam Dalton. So it was nice to have a friend in there because we made up the primary. There was just very little kids. There was maybe one or two.
Yeah, but maybe they were older.
Yeah. Well, and then our other
there was
siblings.
a big primary because I wrote in my journal that we had 20 kids today.
Oh,
so
really?
there was a lot of San Carlos kids that came out, and it was hit and miss, and it wasn't every week, but it was oftentimes.
Yeah, sometimes you'd get.
And there was one primary class, and it was good. It was fun. But it was a lot of kids sometimes.
The regulars were us and the Daltons, though, every week and out.
Yeah,
so it would have been like, 3 Hansens and 3 Daltons or something.
And then plus other ones, but.
Yeah. And they also had really good potlucks, too.
They had potlucks. They had break the fast times. Christmas party, I remember that. Spencer came out as the Santa Claus for the Christmas party. And he was the rebellious kid then, not quite on track for what we wanted him to be. But he came out and he was turning his life around at that time. And he came out as the Santa, and he put on the Santa suit. And from then on, I think he started being more active in Glow Board. That was his senior year. Kind of turned a corner there. So it was fun.
Sister Goodman, in talking to my wife beforehand, she believes that you may have been seminary teacher for a while.
I was, just for a year.
Can you, do you have any thoughts and memories of that?
Well, I was a seminary teacher for 2 classes. Well, Sister, what's her name though, that was with me. She's in the second ward. I know her. Jody Mikeworth. She was the other seminary teacher, and so there were 2 classes of release time. So the kids got released in the middle of the day, and she took one and I took the other one. That's how I remembered anyway. And then for some reason she had to stop that year, and so then I had 2 classes, and they were back-to-back classes, but it was. My dad, like I said, my dad was a seminary teacher. He was a professional, and I just kept thinking of him. He was dead by this time, had passed away by this time. But I just kept thinking of him, and how did he do this every day? This was hard work. And I have nothing but admiration for the Laws, and who else has been seminary teacher forever? Edie McBride. She was a seminary teacher for a long time. And
Kathleen
Terrafin for a while, too. And I just have nothing but admiration for, and everybody should, nothing but admiration for these people who do a lesson day after day. And that was before there was a new program that came out, I think, halfway through the year where you didn't have a lesson manual. You just went for the scriptures, and that's how you made your lesson out of the scriptures, and which is good. That was the new church policy, CES policy. Anyway, and it was just hard work. But boy, fun times, and learn to love the kids, and it was a very good time of my life.
Brother Hansen, what was seminary like for you?
Yeah, so seminary was a blast. I had Sister Terrafin my first 3 years, freshman, sophomore, and junior year. She always seemed to make it fun. You were in there with freshmen through seniors, and everyone just got along. It was a building right next to the high school, which is now a residence. So you just walk out of the high school across the street, and you were just in a different environment. Yeah,
New
you're
world.
with your church friends. You were
I felt the spirit. It was just great.
yeah, and I remember my junior year, I was not coming to seminary very regularly, and
Didn't know
that. And towards the end of the year, Sister Terrafin approached me, and she is like, "Hey, if you want to graduate, you got some makeup work to do." And I'm glad she did that, because I'm not. You don't do anyone any favor when you just give them a pass, like just letting me graduate without doing the work wouldn't have helped me at all. And I was like, okay, I got to think about this. Do I really want to graduate? And she showed me all the homework assignments I had to do. I remember having to do them at home after school on my own time, reading church manuals and writing stuff down so that I could make up the days that I missed. And got all caught up in time for my senior year when I got a new teacher, Edie McBride. And I was definitely her favorite student. She wouldn't say that, but I was the senior in the room. She had just a bunch of young, awkward freshmen, sophomores, and I was just like,
My gosh.
just like her buddy in there, like, hey, we know what's going on. I got you. I can help you out if you need it. And but Go First really carried the seminary program. You think about it, with Kathleen, with Edie, and then my mom for a long time there, doing it volunteer. Well, no, I think,
Yeah.
was it?
Well, I certainly was, but I don't know. There might have been a little tiny stipend before that. I don't know.
Well,
There wasn't much.
There should have been, because it was a lot of work. It was two
Because
classes.
it was considered
It was
release time.
Yeah. There was also early morning seminary available, and another guy taught that.
Yeah.
But I always had release time. And now I'm impressed with the kids now who go early in the morning.
Come to the church. And
I taught seminary for a year in 2017 in Texas at 6 a.m. in the morning. And man, doing that with a
that's
full-time job
dedication.
and all volunteer and preparing a full 45-minute to an hour lesson every day, that was one of the more challenging callings I had ever had. And so it gave me even more respect after thinking back to my seminary teachers as a kid and all the stuff they would do, and just really appreciate them, that they really believe and have conviction to be able to just do that, and want to pass on their teachings and teach the youth. And so, yeah, still impressed with the laws and how they do it. So it's good.
There's one question that I like to ask people. And certainly in the church, there's, I think one way or another, there's always been an emphasis on ministering to one another. And so the question I have is, can you think of a particular act of service that someone else did for you that had, in the ward or the state, that has had an impact on you?
I just feel like we've always been served since we were in Globe Ward, but one time in particular, I had a horrible accident with a backhoe, and it hit me, and it threw me, and I was put in the hospital for a month. And I had 6 kids at home, and some of them were really young, and this was back in '95. And I got a lot of help from the ward. I remember meals being brought in. And I'm sure kids hauled here and there and everywhere. And then after I started recovering, I needed help getting to therapy over at Heritage. And then there were friends taking me, especially Terry Dalton, taking me to therapy. And because I couldn't drive, I had to learn to walk again, basically. And so that was a period of 6 months or so that we were just really treated special. And we were out at San Carlos at the time. And so I didn't do my duty out there. But Glow Board members stepped in and helped me at that time and helped the family.
Oh yeah, we had so many meals made for us during that time.
Yeah, and it was very helpful.
I remember trying Karen Hunter's lasagna and then like comparing it with the other 3 lasagnas we got, and I'm like, man, hers is so good.
All right. I don't know about
And honestly, it had so much cheese in it, and I was just like, this is the best.
cheese. Well, anyway.
We had lots of help because
lots of help.
but my mom was out for
I was out
in the
6 months.
hospital.
I was in the hospital 1 month, and then I had
and
therapy.
just in bed.
I was in bed a lot. So anyway, that was one particular time. I'm sure there's some I'm missing, but
Yeah, there's a ton. I can talk about just little things that people have done for us over the holidays. Or one that comes to mind, my wife was telling me when we moved here, she felt like the women were just so, especially there was a few women who were just so helpful with her in moving our stuff. We at first moved in with my mom when we came back. Globe housing is not always the most plentiful, and we were looking for something, and so we were living, all 6 of us, in one little bedroom. Not one, the big bedroom. The garage converted to a bedroom, but all 6 of us in there.
Yeah.
And so when we moved out of there, we went to an apartment on 4th Street, and just ladies like Apriel Ellis and Melanie Pollock, and
I remember that.
they were so helpful, and Rachel remembers that and very well and appreciates that. Yeah, I could. There was. That's just the nature of it is. So, I spent 16 years away from Globe. During that time, I lived in many places down in the valley. Went on a mission to Portugal. Moved to Virginia. Moved to Texas, and the thing about the church being so global that it is, like anywhere you'd go, you'd always be plugged right into a new ward, and with
instant family.
Yeah, it's like an instant community, and people willing to help, and we were always willing to give help as well. So that was really it's just part of being in. I think one of the strengths of the church is that community aspect of people just take you in once you start coming. You're part of the community, part of the family, and they'll just start helping you out as you need it.
So 2 things. Is there anything, as we've been talking, that'll bring up that, or we ought to talk about that. And then the last thing is I'll invite you to leave a brief testimony with us. If you'd like to do that.
Well, I can't think of any more things for myself, but my testimony really grew. Here in Globe, and this is classic me, I just cry when I think about my testimony, the miracles that I've seen from my growth and my closeness that I've come to the Savior. There were times in my life where I just didn't know how it was gonna go on. Hard times with my marriage and my husband leaving the church, but the Lord is good, and He provides miracles when we need them, and when something has to happen. I remember Bishop, what's his name right across the street from us? Crockett. Such a kind man, and helped me out so much during that time. And my testimony grew in leaps and bounds. That's all I can say. And I'm so grateful for good people and I'm grateful for good leaders, great bishops, stake presidents. President Wolf was one, and Bishop Dalton. Good people, wonderful people. And it just grew a lot. And my testimony is that I know that the Savior, my Redeemer, is Jesus Christ. And I know that this is the church that He made to come forth through the prophet Joseph Smith. And I know that the Book of Mormon was my lifeline, is my lifeline every day. As I just finished it again last week and started it again yesterday. And that's what I need to, that's what I need to keep my faith strong. Start it, finish it, keep my covenants as best I can, attend the temple. These things are all ways to grow your testimony if that's where your desire lies. There's nobody that needs to go without if they want to be closer to the Savior, and if they want to have eternal life, and that's my greatest goal with my family, then it's all laid out for us, and we can do it. And that's my testimony, most of it. I know President Nelson is a prophet of God, of course, and I just love it.
So, my mom has been just a rock in our family. I've always used that noun to describe her. In the church, she's been a rock for, it's her testimony. And people would always tell me how great my mom is. Anytime they knew her, they would remind me how. But she's, I think, one of the biggest reasons that I was able to make the decision when I was younger to go on a mission. I mentioned that I went to Portugal. I didn't know that I wanted to go. I remember as a high schooler, freshman, sophomore, junior, I was like, people would always tell me, you're going to go on a mission, like non-members. You're Mormon, you're going to go on a mission, right? And I hated that. It was like, you don't act like you
know what you're
like I don't have a say in it, like you're telling me what I'm going to do. And so I'd always keep it open, like, I don't know. And I remember my senior year, really just making the conscious decision and being like, you know what, I think I'm going to go. And I know that's the right thing to do. And my mom was definitely a big part of me keeping that faith. So, because I was raised in a household she mentioned my dad had left the church and she had stayed in, and it was just two different perspectives that I was given as a kid about, with their belief, both how they viewed the church so differently. Both really amazing people, like people inside and out of the church would both agree. Just two really good parents that I was lucky to be raised by, and two very different perspectives on the church. And I'm grateful for my mom who always had a conviction and shared that with us, got me out there on a mission, and also for my dad who's given me a perspective that I don't think I appreciated as much as while I was in the church, and I've appreciated just who he is as a person more since I've had my own transition of faith over the years. And but I will forever be grateful for what this stake has built me into, based off just the good people in it, the community, big part of my childhood. Still have so many friends here. It'll always be a part of who I am.
Well, thank you to both of you for your comments, your stories. It's been a great interview. And with that, we'll go ahead and conclude the interview. Thank you again.
Welcome.